So tell me, Steve, if I was to tell you at the start of this year that Alex Marquez would have more podiums than Marc Marquez, what would you have said to me?
Put a bet on it.
I really wish I had.
I think there's a lot of people around the world like that. I did see on Twitter someone had put a bet on for £100 stake for Jake Dixon to win outright in Le Mans, and the return was something like $4,500.
Whoa, that would have been amazing.
Yep. Then obviously he fell.
Oh, that's such a shame. So close, and yet so far.
I bet that guy was sitting on the edge of his seat like, come on, Jake. Oh, Jake.
Quite. I think most people were. I think most people in the UK certainly were. But, it's nice to see a first-time winner or a first-time podium stander, as we saw in the case of Alex Marquez in MotoGP.
Oh, yes. Yep.
But we will get into that. I'm Tim.
We shall.
He's Steve. And this is For the Love of MotoGP. So, Le Mans, as we've just discussed, was a banger.
It was a banger.
We saw Moto2, an almost first-time winner. And in Moto2, we saw a guy win who hasn't won a race for 4 years. Moto3 was your classic Moto3 race. And MotoGP was a 2020 MotoGP race, I guess.
Yeah. It's becoming like an almost standard race where so much happens.
Yeah, it's almost going to get to the point where if you can predict the podium, it's going to be exciting because it's just so unpredictable at the moment.
It is, yeah, absolutely. Everyone keeps saying, like, what's going to happen? No one's got a clue.
Yeah, exactly. And this race, just the first wet race since Valencia 2018, in fact. So we saw none of the rookies from last year and none of the rookies from this year have ever ridden a wet MotoGP race. And throw one into this season where already no one appears to want to win the championship. No one can get a stranglehold on it. There's 5 races left of the season, and mathematically, literally anyone can still win.
Oh God, yeah. It is wide open.
It's bonkers, man, this season.
It is insane. I don't know. Just don't think we're going to see another season like it for a while.
I honestly don't think we're ever going to see another season quite like it at all. Like,
no.
This is, I don't even know, because you can't even say this with what. I didn't watch MotoGP in 2006, but people always held 2006 as this season that could never be repeated. And it was just a weird season where weird things happened. But in that season, you had the title favourite in Valentino Rossi on a pretty shitty bike and making a few mistakes, but he was still consistently hunting down the championship lead and closing that gap. And every now and again, he'd fuck up. And the consistency of Nicky Hayden would just keep him ahead.
Yes.
But this year hasn't even got that. There's no title favourite. No one's hunting anyone down. No one's being consistent. It's just people fucking up.
Oh, literally. I completely agree. Every time you think, right, this guy's going to do it, crashes. Or he comes mid-pack.
Exactly. Like Johan Mir, we were talking about being the title favourite, and his consistency is really pulling him through. And he goes and finishes 11th in this race.
Exactly.
So,
it's a bit insane. I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, how do you sort of put it into context, what's going on? I was just thinking, you can't. You could write an entire book on this season.
Yeah.
You really could. You put like a standard, let's say standard, there's no standard MotoGP season, but your normal average season, and then just compare it to this, and we could fill an entire novel about what's going on, the comparison between the two. And normally, like, we've got Marquez in it, everyone's going, right, he's going to win, he's going to come second, he's going to come third, that guy's going to push him, this will happen, and it's almost right to a fashion.
Yeah.
This year, you look at every weekend, you think, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, there's just no form book this year. It's just been torn up and it's been thrown out the window, and anything you think can happen won't happen, and everything you think won't happen will probably happen.
Yeah, and it's a nightmare for the fantasy team. I keep looking at mine thinking, I've got a really good one. And then I think, apart from 2 races this year, I've only had all 4 riders finish. So one's always dropped.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I didn't even look at my fantasy league after this race. We'll get into it towards the end of the show and we'll
Yeah, we'll have a quick look.
discuss our way through. But yeah, I haven't even checked. I don't want to because it's only going to upset me because whatever you do is never going to happen, is it?
No.
But yeah, so we'll get into the fantasy leagues towards the end. But let's... what else did I want to rant about before we start into the normal show? That's right, the virtual fan wall.
I was just reading that in the show notes and thinking, he's got to talk about that.
That fucking thing, man. Oh, it just annoys... And the graphics in this one annoyed me even more because they didn't even look good, the graphics around the virtual fan wall. There's a point at the end of the race where I think it was Zarco was riding over the bit of track they've put the graphics on top of, but the graphics were half over the top of him as well. So he just looked like he was floating and you couldn't see his motorbike at all. You could just see his torso just floating over the track. He looked like a ghost.
I didn't see that bit, but yeah, I found it really annoying, this race. I didn't find it too bad, the last one, but this one I did find it annoying. I'm just thinking, do something different. That could be so much better.
I just don't think it's necessary. Just get rid of it. It doesn't benefit anyone being there and it just makes me angry. I don't think anyone enjoys it, but I think most people can just like tune it out as such. Maybe you enjoy it if you're on it, but I don't really understand why. I don't think I'd enjoy having my webcam watching me and then I see myself on the TV and then I cheer and it's on such a delay that I don't know what the fuck's happened. Yeah, well, whatever, each their own, but I don't like it.
I'm starting to join you. I don't know when the next one's going to be up, whether it's going to be this weekend or not, I don't know, but we'll see.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I think it's just going to roll out till the end of the season now, and maybe I'll get used to it. Or maybe I'll just be a grumpy old man for the rest of my days. Who knows?
I've got a really nasty feeling that Dawn are going to slap it up this weekend at Aragon, right on the piece of track that goes around the big wall.
Oh, they will. You're bang on right. That's exactly where it's going to be.
Yeah. I sat there, I was like, that's exactly where it's going to be, because that would fit almost perfectly.
Yeah, I think you're probably completely right about that. And that'll be a shame, because the wall is nice. It's very aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, it is a nice wall. As first it popped into my head. I was like, oh, fan wall. That's going on the wall at Aragon.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, but if Dora, if you're listening, put it somewhere else.
Or just don't at all. Just don't use it.
Please, Tim.
If I have that much sway with Dorner, I'll be very impressed. And I'll be offended that they haven't actually invited me to a race yet.
Yeah, I'll be very gutted if they listen and haven't invited us down. Lovely.
Quite. But anyway, this race as a whole, we were just saying it's like the form book has been torn up. It's been thrown out the window. The first laps were pretty standard for what you'd consider a wet race. It was a bit chaotic. There was only one faller, to be fair, in Valentino Rossi. And then the middle of the race, as everyone kind of got into their rhythms, it started to chill. It was a bit more relaxed. I mean, there were still little scraps. There was a few fights here and there. But it got to a point, there was a couple of laps where I was like, oh, I'm feeling a bit tired. And then the final 10 laps, just everything exploded. Like,
it did. People
started crashing. There was mechanical failures. There were fights for the lead. There were people coming from almost the back of the grid to the podium. It was just it was chaos, and it was amazing. I enjoyed it. I revel in the chaos.
I like the chaos. I like the drama. That's what we go for the spectacle.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, but it was definitely a 3-part race. It started, Rossi fell. Everyone was on like cold tyres in mixed conditions. No one really knew what was going to happen down at the first couple of corners. We expected carnage, and we got it. Then everyone tried to make a break. Everyone was going for it, testing stuff out. Then it sort of, like you say, just settled into this little kind of rhythmic tyre-conserving procession.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it was even conserving tyres. I think it was just everyone feeling the track out.
Yeah, I think there was a few spots of rain at one point as well.
Yes.
Which kind of just upset everyone's sway. And then all of a sudden they realised they could go for it and did. And it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, quite. There were 2 actual on-track things that did wind me up. And it was 2 incidents that were almost exactly the same. And it was the meatball flag, the black and orange mechanical failure flag, I think was thrown way too late twice.
Yes.
The first time when we saw Morbidelli go down and he came back off, and I thought it was a camera hanging off his bike to start with, but Then I watched it again today. I don't think it was. I don't know what was hanging off the back there, whether it was a traction control sensor or something. But something was hanging off the back of his bike. And as soon as he picked the bike up out of the gravel and was riding it, you could see it on the TV. And I had Cherie sitting next to me while I was watching it on my computer. And I'm there like, it needs to be black flagged, because I kind of completely forgot about the meatball flag. I remember, she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, it needs to be black flagged. I was getting very irate, and obviously she didn't have a clue, so she just put her headphones in and ignored me and didn't want to talk to me anymore. But it took him like 2 laps to while he had this thing flapping around off the back of his bike. And then again, we saw the example with Alex Rins going down, and he ended up with it was a strange scenario that he had one of the straps that the marshals carry wrapped around the rear camera on his bike. And even then, that took him a lap to flag him down.
That one was potentially a lot worse as well. If that got wrapped around the tyre, that could have been...
Very much so.
Very bad. But yeah, I was quite surprised. I was quite surprised at how the hell does that strap end up wrapped on the seat unit? All I could think of is they've picked the bike up, given him a push, someone's been holding it, and it's just got snagged and dragged out of someone's hand.
Have you only watched the race once?
Yes.
So when I watched the race the second time, I did look for how this might have happened. Yeah. And there was a marshal that came running out, and he had the strap in his hand, and the marshal with the strap ended up pushing the bike to try and bump start it at the back, and his hand holding the strap was next to the camera. So I can only imagine once it bump started, Rins pulled off, and the strap just got snagged, and it went.
If you were that marshal, you'd be like, yep, fucked up.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because the marshals have got radios. I don't know why that isn't instantly radioed back to, even if that radio doesn't go through to race control, it must go to a director of marshals as such.
It's got to go to someone fairly high up.
Exactly, and it must be 2 radio calls to get it to race control, if not just the one. So I don't know why that marshal didn't be like, oh shit, and pass the information on straight away, and maybe he did, and maybe this is the problem with race control.
That, or my only other thought is I'd like to think he noticed straight away, but maybe he didn't. Got back to wherever his spot was, and then suddenly realised, oh hell.
I can't see how he wouldn't know. He was really, like, in the, as he was bump starting the bike, he was really gripping the strap. So as the bike must have taken it out of his hand, like, you don't see the bike take it out of his hand, but it must have happened that way. And he would have felt it, like, wrench out of his hand. There's no way he can have not noticed it happening.
Right.
But we can't blame the marshal here. Like, it's a freak accident. And we don't know whether the marshal instantly reported it or not. If he didn't report it, certainly his fault. But if he did report it, then definitely not his fault. It's an accident that happened, but it should have been stopped way earlier than it was.
Yeah, definitely. That potentially be quite dangerous. I think we'll have to just put that one down to lack of communication then, or timing of communication. But yeah, they definitely need to work on that. Morbidelli and Rins should have been black flagged a lot sooner than that.
Yeah. And I did quite enjoy the fact that Rins, rather than actually going into the pits because he had a mechanical, just like looked round at the back of his bike, realised what it was, pulled over at the side, whipped it off, chucked it into the gravel, and then off he went again.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, get rid of that shit.
Yeah, and then just rolling around in 16th.
Yeah, just like, oh, we're all good. Get back on.
That's it. Anyway, shall we dive in and go with our usual order of things?
That is the usual order.
Cool. So, as per usual, Aprilia.
Yep.
Just a yep.
Just a yep. I've actually thought, I know it was mixed conditions, a bit different this weekend, but I actually thought the Aprilia in these conditions looked really, really good.
I'm with you, and I felt like this is a weekend that we can actually talk about Aprilia without me getting annoyed about it.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things I thought earlier on. I thought, actually, we're going to have a bit to talk about with Aprilia here. We're not just going to breeze right over them and just, like, dust them to one side.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did look good. I mean, Bradley Smith topping the timing in free practice and looking seriously good in the wet, and so did Lace.
Yeah. It's something that, I don't know, you always see British riders, I think, well, not always, but you usually see British riders performing very well in the wet. And I think that just comes to the fact that the UK is just cold and wet a lot of the time. So they're just used to riding around in these conditions. But I honestly thought Aprilia were on for a podium at one point.
I did.
During the race, yeah. Bradley Smith was fast, man. He qualified 19th, which was way behind his teammate who qualified in 15th. Yep. So not actually way behind, 4 places. but he really was making ground up. He was well inside the top 10 within the first few laps. And like I say, I honestly thought he was going to make it through, and I thought he was going to be fighting for the podium. And,
I agree with you. I really did.
And then the inevitable happened, which always happens when you think something's fun, especially in 2020, and he did crash out.
He did, and he looked hurt as well.
Crawling away from the bike.
Yes, he had a big crash in free practice as well, which clearly hurt his ankles.
Oh, okay. So I missed that. I didn't watch any free practice, so I missed the big crash.
No, I missed it. I have seen a little clip of it. It did look nasty. That was a big crash. But yeah, when he crashed in the race and just like crawled off, I was like, oh man, there's got to be something to that. But hopefully, there's no lasting injury or he's not going to carry anything on to this weekend. And he'll be back.
Yeah, it's the problem with triple headers, isn't it? You get hurt in the first one, and you've not really got any time to recover.
That's it. No, we know these guys are super fit. They're physio and just bodily strength aids their healing time, but not even a week, was it? 5 days?
5 days, yeah.
Well, not even that, 4 days, full days off, and then you're back to practice on the Friday.
Yeah.
So that's no time at all, and these guys get bruised to hell.
Mate, if I get a paper cut, I'm still complaining about it 4 days later.
Oh, mate, I've got cuts all over me for work, and I'm still hobbling around.
They're cuts on your hands, and you're hobbling around.
I know, mate, they're terrible. Awful cuts these are. They go deep. It's just, these guys are like super strong and tough. Just they make us look like pussies.
They certainly do. But like you say, there's the 4 days isn't enough time to heal anything. So
absolutely not. They're
really suffering. Aleix Espargaro, though, like we say, he qualified 15th, raced to 14th in the end. I kind of thought during the race, and it was like, well, towards the end of the race when I'm making these notes, I was like, it's a pretty... Smith was so fast. It's quite disappointing to see Aleix racing to 14th. Like, he should have been higher up. And then it occurred to me that Smith may have been fast, but Smith's also in the gravel. Like, Espargaro did score 2 points, and he did finish the race. So he did infinitely better than his teammate by the end of the race.
Oh, he's very clever. He knows not to push when, it's going to get risky. If it looks like you're just better off conserving what little points you've got, because there's a lot of potential to get really hurt this weekend.
Certainly.
We did see it with people falling, but he rode a good race considering the conditions and was quick and finished like in or around some big names.
Yeah, for a lot of the race, there was the weird scenario where he was being followed by Johan Mir, by Morbidelli, by Vinales. He's been followed by like multiple podium sitters this year, by race winners this year, and they're all floating around the back with the Aprilia. Yeah,
none of them could get past him.
Yeah.
Good weekend for him.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was a pretty solid weekend, actually, all things considered.
It's actually just nice to talk about Aprilia on a positive note.
Yeah, that's fair. And before I go out on an Aprilia rant, let's move it on to Suzuki, shall we?
Let's leave it on a high.
Suzuki, though, this isn't going to be a high, is it? Suzuki had an awful weekend as a factory.
By their standards, yeah, Jesus.
We saw... And it wasn't just the race, it was all weekend was bad.
The whole lot, from FP1 right through to the race day, it just did not look like they could get to grips with it.
Yeah, both riders out in Q1. So Mir in 14th, Rins in 16th. Mir, who, like we've been saying, we've been talking about as a championship contender, and there's this consistent guy who's just podium, and he's clawing in on the championship lead. Goes and can't even get inside the top 10 in the race. No. Finished in 11th. The baffling thing is he finished in 11th and is still only 10 points off the championship lead.
That's great, isn't it? I think that's brilliant. But no, like you've written in your notes, that it looks like it's going to be... if that continues, that form continues, it is now going to be a real struggle.
Yes, and I think that he needs to now... If he could have done it and won the championship by just consistently coming second, third, while there'd still, I think, be an asterisk over it that he didn't win a race all year, he'd still be able to go, but he performed so well. However, if he wins a championship now, with just getting these second, third, and the odd 10th, I think that really does it's not that he won the championship, it's that everyone else lost it.
Yeah.
He needs to go out and win a race or two to be, I don't know, in my head at least, to be a legitimate champion. I think and I feel like he needs to at least win a race or two.
Absolutely, I agree. I think you need to sort of get that seal of approval, that stamp, put your mark on things and say, look, I am a proven race winner.
Yes.
I'm a constant podium threat, title threat. I'm here to stay. If you win it with such inconsistency, such deep troughs, then it just shows how bad everyone else has been.
Yeah, and it's deep troughs without the highs. Like Quartararo, who we're seeing leading the championship still, has had deep troughs this year, but he's also had those immense highs where he has been taking the maximum amount of points.
Exactly, and Mir is just not getting that. And it's just, it'll be that little bit that he's missing out on, those 5 points, which will add up.
Yeah.
And that will be your difference.
Yeah, certainly.
That'll be the bit that kills
Can you imagine the bonkers scenario if Mir wins this season without winning a race and then never wins a MotoGP race?
It's quite feasible.
The weird thing is, in MotoGP, in this current era, in 2020, and going forwards, if he wins the championship and then Marc Marquez comes back and is the same old Marc Marquez, there's a legitimate chance he may never win a race.
Yeah, there is. For a lot of these rookies and first-time winners, that is a real thing to consider. That if you want to win a MotoGP race, this is your season.
This is the year to do it, definitely, just to prove you can. Because if you can't prove that you can win a race this year without Marc Marquez there, how can you possibly think you can win a race next year when he is there?
Exactly. And we know he has started training to come back.
Yes.
When that'll happen, we will see. But we know he's posting fitness. Sorry, whack the microphone. We know he's on it. He's starting to train to come back.
Yeah.
And all right, physical ability might be questionable, but his mental desire to win, I'm sure, is still going to be there. Because now he's going to have something to prove.
Yeah.
So if you want to win a race, do it in the next 5 races.
Yeah, exactly. This is the time that this is your best shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that goes, that is everyone, isn't it? We're not just talking Johan Mir here, that is everyone. Everyone needs to pull their finger out and get it done this year. Alex Rins, his teammate, is a prime example of this. He was on for a good race this week and did look like he could take the win. The whole weekend had been awful for Alex Rins, much like Johan Mir, like we say, qualified in 16th. But he was racing near the front, and I mean, if it hadn't rained, he'd have been nowhere near the front at all.
Oh no. That saved this weekend, really, apart from that crash.
Yes, and it was a good tyre choice that helped because he had a slightly harder option tyre on.
Yep.
So he was set up for a great final few laps, but as the race kind of came to him and he started tearing forwards, he also started pushing too hard. He had that mistake where he nearly wiped out all 3 of the front runners. I
sat there watching that. Sarah was next to me, and I can't remember if I had Brody asleep on me at the time. I think he drifted off, and then we were watching the race, and I just sat there trying to be quiet, and was just like, oh, it's going to end badly.
Yeah, I had that was one of the points where I was like my arms were in the air and I was holding my head and gone a bit mad, and Cherie, who was still sitting next to me trying to do some work, I saw her turn her music up and then she just huffed at me and left the room. So I think by that point it had just got too much for her.
I think the girls have got used to us now. I think they sort of understand that it's a race weekend. Don't talk to us.
I don't know. I think Cherie often forgets, or she almost deliberately forgets what a nightmare I am when I'm watching a race, and then she remembers halfway through and then just leaves me to it.
For God's sake, he's on it again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sarah's pretty good. She'll sit and watch it where the boys like to watch it. Normally at the minute, because the Formula One's on, Enzo will come toddling through halfway through and go, racing cars? No. Bikes. Racing cars.
That's
Bikes.
Okay. The cars are still good, man. You can get them into the F1.
I tried to watch a bit of it this weekend, and then I realised I had stuff to do. I was like, no, I'm going to turn it off. So I recorded it. It's there to watch.
Oh, well, it's a special weekend, this one, mate.
Yeah, I saw, and I wanted to watch it for that reason.
Yeah.
just to see what happened. But as soon as like the race was over and that was on, I was like, I've got to get on now. Got stuff to do.
That's
Kids
fair
to play
enough.
with. Yeah.
Right, let's go and move on to Yamaha, shall we?
The Yam Yams. Let's do it.
The Yam Yams, also a terrible weekend for the Yamahas, I think.
It was not good.
It wasn't, well, it was great until the race.
Yeah.
Up until the race, it really looked like it was probably going to be a Yamaha 1-2-3 by the end of the race.
Up until that point, they pretty much dominated all the free practice qualifying and just about everything that they could possibly do.
Yeah, and they looked great. They all looked very strong. They looked like, I say they all looked very strong. Vinales and Quartararo looked very strong, at least. Morbidelli and Rossi still looked good, but didn't look as dominant as their two teammates did. But then the rain fell, and it turns out the Yamahas, at least around Le Mans, do not work in the rain.
Not at that temperature. We saw Rossi fall within two corners.
Two corners, yeah. He fell at turn 3, which really is turn 2 around Le Mans. Le Mans is a weird track because turn 1, for some reason, is turns 1 and 2. But yeah,
it's a bit of a weird setup, isn't it? He just sort of kicked things off. He went down, sort of split the pack, and then from there on out, Vinales was right at the back.
Vinales had already dropped down to Rossi by the start. Vinales, who qualified on the second row, was back well outside the top 10 by the time they hit turn 3.
Yeah.
And Rossi, when he went down, was very, very lucky to not get run over because he was on the inside of that corner and he crashed and he slid all the way to the outside on the first lap, in the middle of the pack. So there were bikes everywhere.
I think his saving grace with that crash was it's such a slow corner.
Certainly that was it, because it gave the guys around him time to react. We saw Mir very near. Rossi kicked Mir's front wheel. That's how close he was to having his leg snapped by and being run over. And Mir and Vinales had to take to the gravel, or not to the gravel, but come off track and onto the tarmac, all the extra painted bits, to avoid him. And they both managed to rejoin fine, but it did not come further down the field. Just
that whole scenario, that whole crash maneuver, everything that came with it just added to a lot of people's woes.
Yes, certainly.
If it had been the next corner where Rossi had flipped it right and was then on the outside, I think
it wouldn't have got in anyone's way, yeah.
No, very inconsiderate of him to do it right there.
What a dick.
Yep. I'd have marched in there and gone, couldn't you have waited one corner?
It did make me think, though, we've seen Rossi get very lucky with a couple of incidents this year.
He has, yeah, saying that, I hadn't really thought about that. He has been pretty lucky. He's been very unlucky with his crashes this year.
3 races in a row he's crashed out now.
Yeah, that's a lot for him.
Well, I don't know. It's this weird thing with Rossi, is we all say Rossi's the master of consistency. Rossi very rarely crashes. Rossi could consistently score points, get on the podium, get himself to a title. I really don't think that's true. I think we've seen Rossi make a lot of mistakes in the last few years, and he crashes a lot more than anyone else seems to crash, in fact. He just always manages to walk away from it with his reputation intact. He's crashed more than Zarco this year, and Zarco is someone that we're all being like, he's crashing too much, there's a problem here.
That's just who he is. It's just that legacy, isn't it, that comes with it. He's done it already. Everyone else has got something to prove.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Zarco's not got 9 championships.
No, the only thing that I think is really outstanding for Rossi is that 200th podium.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not concerned that he's not going to get it, because even he's got another year and 5 races. So we say even in a truncated season next year, if that does happen, he's probably got 20 races yet, and he's going to be on a full factory spec Yamaha M1, arguably on a more successful team next year than he's on this year.
Definitely is at the minute.
So, I'm not concerned he's not going to get that podium. It will be nice to see it happen, but it would be an annoying number, wouldn't it, if he doesn't make it?
Oh, I'd sit there at home if I'd have retired and gone, what if?
And I'm sure there's enough what-if moments in his career already, because what if he hadn't crashed at Valencia in 2006? What if he hadn't have got that penalty in 2015 for, quote-unquote, kicking Marquez off the bike in Malaysia?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That's potentially 2 more championships he should have won. And in those 2 championships, there are enough times that you can see the mistakes that he made that lost him those championships.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, for him, although he's done it all before, that if I was in his shoes, I'd want that 200.
Yeah.
So I think that is part of the problem as well. We know he's good in the wet. Yes, we've never been to Le Mans at this time of year before, so everything was a lot colder.
And it was like a track temperature of like 9 degrees or something silly, wasn't it?
One of the first times, I believe, it's in single-figure track temperatures.
I think it was the lowest temperature since the 80s, maybe?
Something like that, which is insane.
Yeah.
These tyres are just not designed to work at that temperature. I think that is part of the problem. I think when he's got a sniff of it, even now, he's pushing for it.
Mm. And I think that's the problem. He's over pushing for it.
Yeah, well, they all do. You'll see all the riders overcook the tyres, should we say, or undercook the tyres, if you will, and just push too hard and they go down.
Yeah.
That, I think, is a big part of the problem. Obviously, he's got the mindset and the experience to just relax and think, right, it'll come, it'll happen. But his past results from the last few years are probably saying it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So when you get a sniff of it, let's go for it. It'll crash. Shit.
Yeah, and that seems to be the ongoing issue, doesn't it? Like you say, he gets a sniff of it, he pushes too hard because he's like, right, I can. And that was the thing at Catalunya. Last race out, it was oh, look, I could actually win another race here. Oh shit, I've crashed. And this time, look, it's wet, it's Le Mans, I'm good round Le Mans anyway. I've got the opportunity here. Oh shit, I've crashed.
Yeah, exactly. And he'd looked good all weekend up until that point.
Yeah.
And it was, can't blame him for trying.
No, that's fair.
You know, it's just unfortunate he was the only faller at that corner at that time. It's just pure bad luck.
Mm.
So, but hey ho, he's pretty good round Aragon, so.
Is the Yamaha good round Aragon?
No.
So we'll see. And he's got 2 races round there. Let's hope he can finish them.
Exactly. This is 2020 as well. He'll probably go and win 2 on the bounce now.
Yeah, I mean, God, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Can you imagine? Well, not there'll be fans there, but the celebrations around Italy would be insane.
Yeah.
Social distancing would definitely go out the window.
Yeah. Right, so let's dive onto. We've kind of already spoken about Morbidelli having his crash, remounting, getting the meatball flag. We spoke about Rossi over pushing, crashing. Let's go on to Maverick Vinales. We've discussed briefly. Terrible start, dropped a lot of places. He was down at 18th at one point. Did manage to fight his way back to 10th in the race, but not really anything else to say about that. Really, it's just Maverick being Maverick, isn't it?
Yeah, none of the Yamahas went well, so we'll take that away from him. But you cannot take away the fact, like you put in the notes, classic Mav.
Classic Mav. And you can't forget here that only 2 Yamahas finished, and the factory Yamaha, arguably the number 1 Yamaha rider, wasn't first of those 2 Yamahas to finish.
No, that's not the first time we've seen that this season, but
it won't be the last.
No, but it's just becoming way too regular.
Yeah, and did you hear? So I didn't realise this. I only heard about it later. That he got a terrible launch, obviously, because he decided that the only way he could get a good start on this Yamaha this year was to turn off all traction control, all launch control, and do it all by feel.
Jesus.
Yeah, so he decided in a soaking wet race on a track that is arguably one of the loudest tracks on the calendar, just because of the way the grandstands are and the way the sound echoes around on the start-finish straight, that he was going to try and do it all by feel, which meant that obviously fucked it up because people have been spending millions of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever your currency is, on these traction control systems. And to be fair, your left hand probably isn't better than that, sadly, but he seemed to think it was, so he fucked that.
kudos for trying. Jesus, having the balls to give it a go.
I don't know. I think this is another example of his crew chief not being like, Mav, shut the fuck up and ride the bike. Let me make your decisions here. I'll tell you what tyres to put on. I'll tell you what suspension to have. I'll tell you what brakes to have. I'll tell you what traction control systems to have. Just go and win a race.
Did his crew chief actually know then he was going to do it? Or
I mean, how else do you turn all the assists off without?
Can he not disable it on the dash, or
I don't know,
one of the
to be honest.
PlayStation buttons on his handlebar?
He presses the start button, goes through to options.
just hit A 3 times and it's all off.
I don't know, but I imagine it can't. Like, there must be a decision you have to discuss with your crew chief.
I would imagine so, that some boffin's got to sit there with a laptop and go, right, off.
Yeah.
Or put it on an option on a button.
Yeah.
So you can scroll through like 1, 2, 3, 3 being all off. But bloody hell, to try it, I wouldn't even want to try it on a dry race without doing a full burnout and having the stickiest tyre ever. But to do it in the wet on the coldest track ever.
Yeah.
Desperation, I think that screams.
That's exactly it. It does. Because I was going to say idiocy, but desperation is probably the better option there, because it does. You're right. It screams, I don't know what I can do to make this happen, so I've got to try the extremes now.
Exactly. But if you've got to the point where you've got to try the extremes, then is it time to give up?
Big question. That's it.
Is it, if you've got that low and you've got no other options, something's massively, massively wrong. It's, time to reset, have a good look at what you're doing, and try and work out what the hell has got you to this point where you're so desperate that you start thinking, I can outthink, like you said, a multi-million pound, dollar, euro machine.
Yeah.
That has been specifically designed for one purpose, to go quick and get you off the line quick.
Yeah.
Idiocy.
Yeah.
Desperate.
It's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. I just don't know.
I tell you what, let's, before we get too deep into this rabbit hole of whether or not Mav should still be racing, because I feel like this is a rabbit hole we fall down. It's a bit like the Aprilia thing all over again, isn't it? Which is why my notes have just become classic Mav. Because we just say the same things about him. So, I don't know. And probably next race, he'll come at Aragon and he'll just go and win.
Exactly. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Which is
just
a
a wait and
bloody
see,
shame that he just can't get it dialed in.
Yeah.
What he needs is half fuel tank, start the race like that, and then we'll get some bloke on the back of a van, fill him up halfway round, and he'll be fine again. Half tank, go son.
That's it. If they can refuel planes in the air, I'm sure we can refuel a motorbike on a track.
Yeah, that's it. Right. When the kids wake us up at 3:30 this morning, I'm getting the drawing board out.
Just start Instagramming designs to Maverick.
Yeah, man. This will sort you out, son.
Right, let's move on to Fabio Quartararo.
Let's go.
Qualified on pole, looked like he was a dead cert to be the first Frenchman to win the French GP since
1980-something,
70-something?
70-something, I believe.
Okay.
Let's go 78.
78. I haven't got a clue, so we're going with 78. And if it was dry, not certainly, but probably would have been the winner.
Absolutely.
But it was wet, and like we had discussed earlier, none of the rookies for the last 2 years have raced a wet MotoGP race. So Fabio Quartararo has not raced in the wet properly.
Massive learning curve.
Huge learning curve, and he just spent the entire race going backwards. From qualifying on the first, by the end of the first lap, he was in fourth, battled with Pol Espargaro for a couple of laps, but then dropped back and just kept dropping. And in the lowest he got down to, I think at one point, that's him in 11th.
He did drop down at mid-pack before he sort of seemed to get his head round what was going on.
But even that was only when he saw Mir and Vinales overtake him. He kind of went, shit, that's my championship. Like, they're going to take points out of me in the championship now. I need to get back in front of them.
Yeah. But that's a good marker to have in front of you. Someone, like also a rookie in the form of Mir, who is doing better. All right, he's on a different machine. But you've then got something to pull you around to go at.
Yeah.
And just maybe that little bit of extra, oh shit, I need to do something here, was just enough to make him realise you could just nick this little bit here. You can just tuck that bit there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Give it a bit of all. If you know they're behind you, you haven't really got to risk it that much. Just sit there. Maybe it was a better option.
Yeah.
Like you say, the second they got round him, right, I've got to go. And it just gives you that little bit of incentive to push.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it, isn't it?
Yeah.
The bonkers thing is he managed to finish in 9th and still extend his championship lead.
It's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. No other time could you say, right, I finished just inside the top 10, but I still gained points on people.
And we've seen that happen multiple races this year with multiple different riders being the ones finishing just outside the top 10 and still gaining on their competition.
It's crazy. It's absolutely brilliant. I'd love to see like the season review at the end of this year and just what people have got to say. Because it's not like a normal format where you could write something down. This year must just leave people going, what the hell have I got to say?
Yeah.
You know, we've got a 2-hour slot, but we could talk for 2 years about this.
Yeah.
Insane. I love
it. So let's move on to KTM. KTM had quite a binary result, really. We saw Brad Binder qualifying 17th. He finished the race 12th. Pol Espargaro, on the other hand, qualified 8th and finished 3rd. We then see Miguel Oliveira qualifying 12th, finishing 6th, and his teammate qualifying 20th and finishing 15th. So each KTM team seemed to have one good result and one pretty bad result.
Yeah, it's fairly even, sort of shared it out a bit, you know. Must have got together before the race and gone, right, this is what we're going to do.
And again, though, it's the example of the rookies, isn't it? Oliveira was a rookie last year as well, so he wouldn't have had a wet race.
No, it just, for some reason, he was the exception.
Yeah, well, one of the exceptions. We'll get on to the Alex Marquez in a bit. But Brad Binder, you know, when he won that race at the start of the year, I did say something about him maybe being a championship hopeful. I think I was very hopeful.
I think a lot of people were, mate. I think we saw a glimmer of something that is yet to be ignited.
Yeah.
I think, again, coming back to this year and the situation we're in, just allowed something magic to happen on that day.
Yes.
But I think we're just sort of settling into a little pattern where we're going to see him get used to the bike, used to the tracks on that bike, and then next year we're going to see what Binder can do.
Especially when he's actually got Oliveira alongside him in the box, when they're proper teammates and they're really going to push each other on.
Exactly. We know they go well together. And hopefully they can bounce off each other and just work well and get good results.
Yeah, that's it. And like we say, speaking of good results, we saw Espargaro qualifying 8th, as I've said, finishing 3rd. At one point, he looked like he was lapping fast enough to get better than 3rd, but
that's what it looked like. I think just that little bit of extra just shot his tyres just enough to make him realise, no, I can't push this.
Yeah, but it's his 3rd podium of this year.
He's doing really well.
Really well. When we look at the fact that up until this year, he'd only have had one podium, and that was that wet Valencia race in 2018. Yeah. And then this year, he's got 3 under his belt. It not only shows the KTM has improved drastically, which it has, but it really does show, actually, that Pol Espargaro is almost a complete package that a lot of people obviously thought he was. I think I probably severely underrated Pol Espargaro for much of his career because he came on from winning the Moto2 Championship. He jumped onto the Yamaha, which was a consistent podium bike before he got on it, that Tech 3 Yamaha, and then he didn't really do anything with it. I always thought it was because he was overrated, but I think it's become quite clear now that it's just because the Yamaha didn't suit his riding style. I think he's got a very unique riding style, and I think he's a bit of a Jorge Lorenzo in the fact that he can't really adapt that riding style.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think sort of the switch to the KTM has proven that it suits him better.
Yeah.
The Yamaha just didn't. And like you say, he's not the type of rider who can make those changes within himself to suit the bike. He needs the bike to be completely changed to suit him.
Yes, I think that's probably true. And I'm not certain that next year on the Honda is going to be as good for it. I'm not sure that's a good move.
People are starting to really say that he will do well. But I'm sceptical after what we've seen this year of what people could do on that bike.
Yeah, I'm quite sceptical, and I just can't see Honda. I've seen how bad their bike is this year. I can't see them, especially without having Marc Marquez, having a good bike next year.
I think it's going to make them realise what they need to do.
Which is build a good bike and not rely entirely on Marc Marquez, to be fair.
Exactly. But I don't think they're going to change it enough away from what Marquez wants, because you've got the multiple time world champion coming back.
Yeah.
And you need to give him what he needs. We have yet to see Marquez on a, say, Yamaha style bike.
Yeah.
We've only seen him on the balls to the wall bloody Honda that only he can ride, which we can only assume he's still going to need.
Yeah.
So if you start chopping and changing it, you're eliminating, really, your only shot of a world title. Are you going to take that risk? Or do you spread your butter over your bread and say, right, we'll make it work for all of you? Hard choice to make. And we don't know what condition.
I don't know. Is it a hard choice to make? Because I feel like if you give Marc Marquez a bike that everyone else can win on, it's not like he won't be able to win a championship on it. Marc Marquez is the rider that it doesn't matter what he's riding, he's going to get the most out of that bike, and he'll get the largest potential out of that bike. It does depend on how he comes back, obviously, but assuming he comes back anywhere near as good as he was last year, if other people can win races on that bike, he can obviously win a championship on it.
I just think for it, in terms of like your second rider and your LCR team, maybe it should be dulled down a little bit to be more rideable for everyone else.
Certainly.
But you need to keep that heavy mix of mental, should we say, that Marquez needs. So in my eyes, the only thing to do really is keep the bike as it is and bring in some other stoner, Melandri style riders.
Bring in some world-class talents.
Yeah, basically. Bring in, which we don't see four of regularly.
No, exactly. I like that you use like Stoner as an example there, because you're saying that Honda not only do they need arguably the greatest rider that's ever lived to ride their bike, but they also need arguably the most talented rider that ever lived to be his teammate.
Exactly. Yeah. But look at the riding styles.
I mean, yeah, and it would have been fascinating to see the two of them on track at the same time.
Oh, Jesus, what a thing that would have been. I think there would have been handbags at dawn.
Oh, I'm sure Stoner would have been crying somewhere, and Marquez probably wouldn't have quite as many championships as he does now. But, I mean, it would have been great to see.
Oh, that would have just been something else, it really would.
It would have been like, especially if they're in the same team, the only comparison... Oh, no, it would have been like Lorenzo and Rossi. It would have been like a Senna and Prost. It would have been something quite special.
It took me a second there. I was like, Senna? Senna? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it had been maybe 2 or 3 episodes since I got a good Formula One reference into one of our shows, Steve, so I needed to...
We haven't dropped some Formula One in for a while.
No, but I got it in there now. I mean, I haven't even got on to congratulating Lewis Hamilton for equaling the great Michael Schumacher's win records yet, so, you know...
I thought it was a really nice tribute that they gave him Schumacher's helmet, presented by his son.
Yes, Mick Schumacher did. Yes, it was great, really nice.
Yeah. I thought, I've only seen like images of it. I haven't watched the race back yet, but I thought, yeah, that was real touching. Nice tribute to him. And it'd be really nice to have an update on Schumacher, actually.
I don't think we'll ever get one. It's one of those things that, yeah, we're never going to get an update on how he is. It's just is what it is. You've kind of got to respect his family's privacy. I did spend probably a couple of years after that skiing accident just looking it up pretty regularly, and then it's got to the point now where I think you've got to kind of respect his maybe his wishes, or is it just his family's wishes, and just leave them to their anonymity.
Yeah, I completely understand. It'd just be nice to know he's okay.
Yeah, well, he's alive, isn't he? So.
Yeah. Don't want to know his condition. Don't want to know the ins and outs of Beals and Enzel. It would just be, he's all right. he'll just a way for the fans to give back their appreciation. It just came to a sudden stop.
Yeah, that's it.
That incident, and just he's a massive part of the Formula One world.
Oh, a huge part. He's ingrained in Formula One lore and Formula One culture for the end of time. As ingrained in Formula One as Valentino Rossi is in MotoGP.
Yeah, exactly. Man's a one-off, equaled one-off now.
Yeah, certainly. And certainly will be overtaken in all of his records by the end of this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just like Valentino Rossi, I'm sure by the end of Marc Marquez's career will almost have been overtaken in all of his records as well.
In some ways, I'm not wishing my life away, but I cannot wait for that to come. That point where we sat here thinking, right, if we're still doing this podcast, remember when we spoke about being at the pinnacle of the golden era of MotoGP, and this Marquez had just appeared, to see someone come in that then overshadows this guy and caps his achievements will just be incredible.
Yeah, it will be. It will be quite special. It's that moment, and we've just talked about Michael Schumacher in that I never saw Michael Schumacher in the start of his career, but I did see the end of his career. However, I've watched Lewis Hamilton since the start of his career, and I've watched him get closer and closer to those records and finally get there now. And by the end of this year, get the championship record as well. And I never saw Valentino Rossi in his prime. I never saw Valentino Rossi start his career. But I have watched Marc Marquez start his career, and I've watched Marc Marquez get closer and closer to Valentino records. So it's going to be... I don't know if Marc Marquez will get to all of Vale's records. I'm not convinced he will. I'm convinced he'll get to the championship record. I'm not convinced he'll get to his win record.
No.
But we'll have to wait and see. But it's nice to see it happen.
Yes. Nice to live for a piece of history.
Yeah, exactly. And just be there and witnessing history week in, week out, certainly.
Yeah. It's nice to think that we'll witness something else apart from living through a bloody pandemic.
Yeah, quite.
It isn't over yet. Anytime it wants to piss off, it can.
That would be great. Right, let's get back to MotoGP anyway.
Yes.
Miguel Oliveira qualified 12th, finished 6th. Pretty good race. Probably should have finished 5th, but was mugged on the last corner by one and only Johan Zarco. And Iker Lecuona, pretty poor race. I actually don't remember seeing him at all. I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. Who knows?
I've been suppressing a sneeze and a cough for ages, mate.
Oh, no, I think I'm okay.
You look good. You look good suppressing that sneeze and that little scream.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't actually remember seeing Lecuona in the race at all.
I don't. As soon as I saw your notes, I sat there and thought, actually, I don't remember a thing about him. He's just a grey man, just circulating.
Yeah, it's certainly...
Just doing his business.
Yeah.
Going about it. Which is a real shame, really, because we know he could do a lot, and it... Like we said before, unless you're at the front, sometimes you just don't get on telly.
No, exactly. Let's move it on to Honda, shall we? Because Honda's a factory we've got a lot to talk about, I think.
Yes.
So let's start off with the first thing I have written here in the notes, which after I sent to you, I realised is now incorrect. But there were rumours Marc Marquez was going to be back at Aragon.
There were a few circulating that he could make an appearance.
Yep. I asked the question, is that a good idea? I mean, he could still mathematically win the championship. I have a strong opinion on whether it's a good idea or not, but I would like to hear your opinion.
I think it's a really bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think whatever happened with that injury the second time round was far worse than we were led to believe.
Certainly.
Otherwise, we would have seen him back by now. I don't know if you've seen any of the shots, but the scar.
The scar is mad, isn't it?
That is mental. You're like me. You said before you wear your scars like a badge of honour.
Yeah.
I'd have arrows pointing to that bugger.
You don't need them, mate. It's like it's amazing. It's maybe the biggest scar I've seen. Like the thickest. It's so raised. Monstrous. Yeah.
It looks nasty.
Yeah.
Something happened. Something far worse happened than we were led to believe. If he comes back now, I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Write this season off. Yeah. Although, like you said, mathematically he could still win the championship. Don't risk it.
No, exactly.
Because you will have to go balls to the wall, which we know he could do, but he's got to win everything.
Yeah.
And he's going to be out of shape. He's going to have He's going to be rusty because he's not been on the bike.
Yeah.
Don't risk it. Write the season off. Get yourself 120% fit. Come back next year and just decimate all.
That's it. And if he comes back weak and comes back not at his normal self, it means that he'll be beaten. Right now, there's still this spectre of Marc Marquez that there is this asterisk, whether we like it or not, whether we think it should be there or not, there is this asterisk around this championship where there will always be someone saying, yeah, but Quartararo only won because Marquez wasn't there. Whether that is true or not, whether that's your opinion or my opinion is irrelevant, because there will always be people saying it.
There will.
And if he comes back now and cannot beat these guys, that asterisk disappears. People can no longer say you only won this championship because Marc Marquez wasn't there. And it means that all these guys that have been winning this year but not beating Marquez will all of a sudden have actually been beating Marquez, and their mental strength will be so much higher because of it. He still has the advantage that he is almost unbeatable right now. Without even being on the grid, he's almost unbeatable.
It's that psychological effect.
Yeah.
He's almost like the little devil sitting on your shoulder. Anyone else that goes out, drops the helmet on, zips the leathers up, gets on that bike, he's just there on your shoulder, just going, I'm not here.
Yeah.
You haven't beaten me yet. And as soon as he comes back in, everyone's going to be wondering, right, what can he do?
Yeah.
What can he do? And that's going to push them. Just having him in the paddock is going to push them to up their game and make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because he will be circulating at the front, and he will be quick. How quick, we don't know. But just coming back is going to play such psychological mind games that it will give him an advantage straight away.
Yes.
And I'd use it. We know what he's like. One mental lap around the cut track and just come in and look at your time and go, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's it. So wait till Qatar next year and bring it back then. Do it then. Don't do it until then.
Don't do it till then. I think the risk for hurting himself, all he's got to do is drop it once, bang that arm, and he's back in for a third surgery.
And that could be career-ending. We don't know. This one could still be career-ending.
It could. Nothing has been said about how bad this injury was. Second time round, he could get back on that bike. Let's say he comes back this weekend at Aragon. He could hop on it and be absolutely nowhere. Mm-hmm. Just because he has not got the strength in that arm to wrestle that bike about. And all of a sudden, he's gone from decimating all to struggling to get in the top 5.
Yeah.
And that's it. Game over.
Yeah, that's it.
Marquez is suddenly struggling for points. Give up. Don't come back. Don't come back. Stay where you are. I'll come and I'll massage your feet for you.
And all of this is pretty much irrelevant because it has been confirmed that he won't be back this weekend anyway.
Yes, that all got confirmed.
So let's talk about Honda and in this race then. Honda, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because as soon as it was wet, the Honda really started to perform. This is much like the Ducati of the, 2012 to 2016. All 2015, I guess. The bike was shit, and yet on a wet day, it could really perform.
Oh, God, yes.
And that's how the Honda feels this year. And I didn't realise it because we hadn't seen it perform in the wet yet. But we saw Crutchlow. I mean, he qualified in 4th, to be fair, and it was dry in qualifying. And he didn't finish the race. But he's also got this horrendous injury that we'll get into. Taka Nakagami qualified 13th, raced to 7th. Alex Marquez qualified 18th, raced to 2nd, scoring a podium.
That's insane.
Stefan Bradle qualified 21st, raced to 8th. All of them made up a lot of positions on this Honda, except Cal Crutchlow, obviously. But we expect Cal Crutchlow to qualify well because Cal Crutchlow will put it all on the line over one lap, and that's why he crashes so much, because he cannot put it all on the line over an entire race.
Crutchlow looked good during the race as well.
He did look pretty solid.
He did look good.
And when you consider the injury he's got, that arm that is still not recovered, the muscle is getting stuck to the skin.
That's
and it's
disgusting.
Oh, it's pretty grim. I
mean, how does that even work then? Will that muscle actually move?
So yes, so what I understand in layman's terms is that the muscle has got a sac around it all the time, and that sac is when you get arm pump. You and I don't get arm pump because we don't do anything strenuous enough to get arm pump. But when these guys get arm pump, it's that the muscle expands too much for that sac, and the sac constricts the muscle. So when you get arm pump surgery, generally they just cut a line in that sac. However, for Crutchlow, he had quite an extreme surgery, I think very similar to Danny Pedrosa had a few years ago, where they just removed the sac completely. And then the muscle now is free to expand, but has also lost that protective layer around it. So as it's trying to heal, and as the stitch in his arm is trying to heal, the two are meshing together. So from what I understand is every time that he flexes too much or pulls his arm too much, it's almost tearing apart again. Eventually, I imagine it would heal with like the right massage and the right treatments in there to stop any scar tissue, to break it up early. You treat it the same way you treat tendonitis, I imagine. Just a certain massage, it would heal okay. But Cal isn't giving it time to heal because he's getting straight back out on the bike. So by the end of the race, he's going to have like the sore, it's going to be weeping, it's going to be gross, it's going to be like the muscle's going to be weak. And he just, I don't know, I don't think he can, it's not sustainable to ride full effort for an entire race with the injury that he's got.
He almost wants to go join Marquez on holiday and just recover.
Yeah, but you also look at Crutchlow and you're like, if he does that, he probably retires.
Yeah, that is the trouble. I think unless he keeps going, he'll just stop and that will be game over.
I think that's exactly it, and I think that's potentially what he's scared of, because that's exactly what I'd be scared of in his position. And I'm not a world-class athlete by any means like he is, but you know, I know from my own injuries, if I spend even a few days just not really doing a lot, not moving much, I really stiffen up and everything really hurts. And when I do start moving again, it takes me weeks to build. I could lose my functional fitness, my flexibility. What I lose in a week of doing nothing could take me 3 months to build back. And I'm not a world-class athlete. I'm not super fit. So someone like Cal Crutchlow, who is a world-class athlete, who is super fit, but is also battered beyond belief. Like, I've got some really serious injuries, but Cal's injuries, while not as severe as mine, are certainly more. He's got more numerous. He's got more of them. So it will take him, what he will lose in a very short space of time will take him, and he may never get them back.
I just like the fact that between you two, we could make a Terminator.
I mean, we probably could, to be fair. If you could weigh me and Crutchlow in, then fucking happy days, mate. Buy a house. You'd be doing all right.
There's a lot of plate in him.
Yeah.
You could almost label yourself as armoured.
I call it enhanced.
Enhanced, yeah. Meta.
Yeah.
If you're Marvel or whatever it is out there. Down with the kids, whatever that's. Yeah. I don't know, I'm old.
Yeah, you're showing it, mate.
Yeah. I can't remember, Wolverine skeleton. That's what I imagine you're like.
Is what we're going for there.
That's what I imagine you're like on the inside.
Not quite that extreme, but it looks good in the X-rays. Anyway, let's move on to Taka Nakagami here. This is a weird one because I feel like Taka has been performing very well all season, and yet the one race that every Honda performs, he doesn't do any better.
Yeah, he seemed to be the exception to the rule. Whether that's his own ability, should we say, to ride in the wet, I don't know. But as soon as it said wet race, I thought, right, Taka, top Honda.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think Taka top Honda this year anyway.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's been the Honda that's been in position to take advantage when other people have crashed, when weird things have happened. But this race, the one race that there was, you know, a real advantage to be taken from people fucking up at the front, he wasn't there to be the guy to take advantage of it.
Something just wasn't happening for him this weekend. It was just, maybe it was a bike setting, something, tyre choice, whatever. It just wasn't there. That 10% was missing. Don't know. Can't put my finger on it. I know Sarah's got him in her dream team, and she kept looking at his position on the screen. I'm like, and even she was sitting there saying, "Why aren't you higher?"
Yeah.
But she was getting frustrated with it. So I don't know. I think, like you said, very strange. Not really sure what happened to him or what happened with his race, but yeah, quite disappointing.
Yeah, I think it was quite disappointing. But there's not really much else to say. So let's move on to Stefan Bradle, I guess. Stefan Bradle, great recovery ride, 21st to 8th. A nice solid result. Gained a lot of places from people crashing in front of him. Failed to beat Taka Nakagami, failed to beat Alex Marquez, but he still recovered 13 places. One of his best races of the year, without a doubt.
That's what I was going to say. What, arguably, because with the conditions, his best race, but one of his best results for a long time. Take it. Absolutely take it, mate, considering how it's been going for you.
Yeah.
Just, sit back and enjoy that 8th place.
Yeah, that's it. And then let's move on to someone who should really enjoy their result in Alex Marquez. Qualifying 18th, finishing in 2nd.
What a ride.
Now, I hate to say it, but at the start of the year, I remember distinctly saying that Alex Marquez was going to get a podium this year. And I only really said it because I thought everyone was being quite harsh on Alex Marquez and discounting him. And we were the same, I think. I mean, I certainly was the same. And I didn't expect him to, come out and win the championship or win races. But I wasn't going to be surprised if he got a podium. And yet, when he got this podium, mate, I was elated. And I was very, very surprised.
I was very surprised he got it. But like you as well, I was also so happy because before he'd even had a race, people were tearing him apart.
Yeah.
Saying he didn't deserve the ride, he shouldn't be there. All right. Some people were saying, it's only because his brother's Marc Marquez that he got the ride. Whatever reason, Honda agreed to it.
And he is a 2-time world champion. Let's not forget that. He did win Moto2. He did win Moto3.
Yeah. All right. Sometimes it took him a long time to get there.
It did take him a long time to get there, but he got there.
Done it. Yeah, he got there in the end. It's not about the journey. It's about the destination. Mm-hmm. And he proved it. So to all the haters, if I was him, I'd have been sat in that garage giving them the one finger salute.
Yeah.
It takes people time to build up to it and get used to it. This is not an easy machine to just hop on. It's not a road bike here. And just ride quick.
And how many riders score a podium in their 9th MotoGP race? He's not even
many
into the double digits in MotoGP races.
No, not many. And given the fact you add into the mix the tricky conditions, he did bloody well.
Really good. He's really never ridden, like the rest of the rookies, never ridden a MotoGP or never raced a MotoGP bike in the wet.
No.
And yet he was the one rookie that was really able to perform.
Exactly. What I really liked as well was the shots of Julio Marquez in the pit, because
we haven't seen that all year.
No, all of a sudden, like normally he's going mental in that pit. Marc Marquez is flying around. He's like just going absolutely crazy. Because nothing's been happening, we haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And I did see someone question on Twitter, is he even there? If he wasn't and I was Alex, I would be pissed.
He's definitely been there for every single race. It's just that Alex Marquez hasn't been on TV or doing very much, so we haven't seen him.
He's, the old man's just been asleep in the back of the garage. Like, just wake me up when it's over.
Yeah. Wake me up if we see Alex on TV.
Yeah, he's back. He's back. Oh, good. Well done, son. Well done. But it was great. A much deserved podium. Silenced the critics, because I think people will argue that it was a wet race, and he's still got a win in the dry. But arguably, it's bloody hard to. It's harder to win in a wet race in treacherous conditions, tricky conditions, than on a dry track.
I mean, he didn't win, to be fair, but I know what you're saying. I wonder actually, and I only really thought of this as I was thinking about Petrucci's win, is that Alex Marquez is quite a big guy. He's quite tall for a MotoGP rider. Yeah. And whether just the extra weight he has behind him and that extra leverage means he just got better heat into the tyres and just had more grip.
Probably. When you put him in a lineup, he's probably one of the tallest lads out there.
You see him standing next to Mark, and he's literally head and shoulders above Mark Marquez.
yeah, I mean, Marquez is a midget, but
he's a tiny guy.
He is a tiny, tiny guy. But still, he is tall, very tall for a MotoGP rider, and you're probably right. He could probably wrestle that thing around and just pump some heat into those tyres, and that's helped.
Yeah, I think that's.
I didn't think of that. Whatever happens, silence the critics. Cracking first podium.
Yeah,
and hopefully, I'm really hoping that we get a dry race at Aragon, and he can come out and just take that positivity and perform again.
The advantage is he's very good at Aragon. We've seen that in the past in the other classes. So it's actually, this is probably the perfect opportunity for him to be riding a wave of confidence going into a double header at his home track.
Yeah, even if he doesn't get on the podium again, get top 5, get top 8. Just vastly improve on your other positions.
Just finish as top Honda.
Yeah, even that would be a good thing, because we know Taka's probably going to go well. Bradle might not. Crutchlow, depending on how his arm is, might not. Just be top Honda.
Yeah.
And have a bloody good race and keep going. Just use that positivity and just pump it back into good results.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Right, let's move on to Ducati, shall we?
Let's go for the big red machine.
The big red machine. An amazing weekend from what was starting to look like it might not be a great weekend for them. I mean, they qualified okay. In fact, outside of Tito Rabat, all of them qualified in the top 10. So actually, I guess it was looking pretty good a weekend. But they didn't look like they were quite on pace with the Yamahas.
No, all through practice, they were just that little bit off. You know, the Yamahas dominated, and everyone was saying, right, it's going to be Yamaha win. But they were just there, just tugging at the coattails.
Yeah.
Just going about the business, working at it. And like you said, just with the conditions on the day, they just came to life.
And they were really ready to take advantage. For much of the race, we saw them running 1, 2, and 3. And that was the 2 red bikes plus Jack Miller for most of the race. We'll just get Tito Rabat out of the way quickly because there's nothing really to talk about there. Qualified 22nd.
Really sorry for him.
Crashed out. We didn't even see him on TV at all. It just the first time I saw him on TV was when his face appeared and it said Tito Rabat has crashed.
That's really bad and disappointing. Because I like Tito. The guy's come back from probably one of the worst injuries or crashes that we've ever seen. Yeah. And he's still chucking it around out there quicker than 95% of the planet could.
Oh, quicker than 99.9% of the planet could, but not quite as quick as 95% of the MotoGP grid.
No, which is a real shame. That sun is definitely set.
Yeah, it's game over on that one. But his teammate in Johan Zarco actually had a pretty poor start in the race, qualified 9th, pretty poor start. And then at the end of the race, just sort of came from nowhere. He was lapping 2 seconds a lap faster than anyone else. Managed to, in the last 4 laps, close down about 8 seconds on everyone else. Took 5th in the end. Did Oliveira in the very last corner to take 5th.
That's a good overtake as well.
It was nice, yeah. Saw a gap, went for it.
Yeah, risky corner there, Jesus. I've no idea what he did to be that quick. Whether he lit a fart or something, I have no idea.
I think he just had tyres at the end of the race when the guys towards the front didn't.
I think he just conserved his tyres and just rode a very, very intelligent race at the start.
Or arguably a very unintelligent race because he had too much tyre left at the end to be able to lap like that.
Yeah, maybe.
If he'd have been, 0.2 a lap quicker for the entire race, he'd have been much closer to the front and he wouldn't have had to go 2 seconds a lap faster.
That is very true. I didn't think of it that way around. Maybe it was a case if he could have pushed a bit more then.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. Because if he could have done, I think he, especially on Ducati in the wet, as we saw from a lot of the other Ducatis and how they ran, he probably could have been up comfortably in that fight for the lead for most of the race.
Yeah, pushing for the podium. Yeah. And just mixing it up with the others. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it was a case of too much conservation and not enough pushing.
Right, so that would be my belief. We didn't see much of him on TV, so I don't really know. It's only towards the end that we started to see him.
Yeah, it was only when he started making those waves and moving up, and like you say, as soon as he got that fastest lap and was like, oh, hang on, he's 2 seconds faster. Yeah. And the bloke in the camera box just went, right, put a camera on him. And then we saw him.
Yeah,
Up
that's
until
it.
then, he's just lapping normally. He's doing nothing. Look at him.
Yeah, that's it. So I don't know. I feel like it was sort of a race that could have been for Zarco. Bagnaia is pretty similar actually. He qualified 7th and finished in 13th.
I thought he'd do really well this weekend.
Again,
really
though,
well.
not raced in the wet, has he?
No, again, learning curve.
Yeah.
So, shame, because I think a lot of people having Pip to do really well. But, who knows?
You know, this year is another learning year, though. The point of being on the Pramac Ducati is to prepare him for time on the big red bike next year. So,
yes.
You know, you can have these poor races this year. You can't have them next year.
Yeah, don't do it again.
Yeah.
That's another cross in your book.
That's it. So there's not really anything else to say about him, I don't think.
No, like you said in the notes, pretty poor race, but uphill learning curve.
Yeah, that's it. His teammate, Jack Miller, arguably the unluckiest man in MotoGP at the moment, qualified 2nd, looked really good all race, comfortably inside the top 3 or top 4 while Rins was there as well, battling on, led the race, in fact, in the early stages, and then had a mechanical failure on lap 19, so with 6 or 7 laps to go.
I'm sure this bloke's cracked a mirror or something.
Honestly, I couldn't believe it when it happened. I was like, what's he done this time?
Yeah, you just saw him sort of sit that bike up, put a hand in the air. You're like, what's happened?
Yeah.
I thought honestly, my first thought was he'd missed a gear.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because of his position on the track, he realised there's going to be people coming up at race pace behind him.
Yeah.
Put a hand up because he had nowhere to go. And then he realised it was mechanical. It's like, oh, for Christ's sake.
You see him going back into the pits.
Oh, you see him throw everything. I was like, gee.
Yeah, and it's amazing when I watched it the second time because I knew he was going to chuck that glove. You could see him stomping. There's a crew member in front of him, and you could see him stomping, trying to get round him to throw the glove because he was so angry. And part of me was like, firstly, 10 out of 10 for being that angry, but still knowing not to throw the glove where it could hit one of your crew. I was like, that's good for you, because if I was that enraged, I'd be throwing my glove at anyone. No offence, Steve, I'd throw a glove at the back of your head if I was that pissed off.
I'd throw everything at you.
Yeah, so he's a better man than either of us because he knew to control himself for to keep control for those last few seconds. But he was so enraged, man.
That was bad. I mean, I don't know what went wrong with the bike, but can you imagine being a mechanic and just be like, hide.
Yeah. I don't think it's been announced what happened on the bike.
I don't think it has, no. Be interested though, because there was no smoke from the bike, whether it's gearbox failure or electronic.
I
whatever.
bet it's electronic.
It's got to be electronic. But whatever happened, he was pissed.
Yeah.
And like you said, unluckiest guy in that paddock at the minute.
It certainly is. But again, does it really matter this year? He's got the big red bike next year. As long as it doesn't happen next year.
No, exactly. He's proven himself. He said he wanted that ride. He's got it. So now he has to fill those big boots next year.
Yeah.
You know, fill those big boots and he can do as many shoeies as you want on top of the podium.
That's it. Let's talk about the 2 big red bikes then.
Let's go for him.
Andrea Dovizioso, man, this race he qualified 6th, got off the line well, racing inside the top 3, watching all of his championship contenders outside the top 10. Still only finished 4th. Couldn't.
It was his weekend to capitalise on everyone else's mistakes.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't do it.
No, he really couldn't. If he could have scored, if he'd have won this race, he'd have scored... Shit, how many points is it for 4th?
16.
No, it's 3rd.
Is it?
Oh, no, I'm thinking Formula 1. You're right, it is 16, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, 16, then down 15, which is 1.
Oh, no, I'm confused now. 25, 20, 16. No, I think it's 13 for 4th.
Oh, it might be 13.
Yeah, I think it is 13 for 4th.
Yeah.
But so he could have been 13 points higher up in the championship if that was right, and that would put him within 5 points of Fabio Quartararo if he'd have managed to win that race.
Because all things considered, that is a bad weekend.
A really bad weekend, actually.
Yeah.
I think
if it was a normal weekend, good race. But when, like you say, all of his title contenders are so far down the order, you've got one thing to do: win the bloody race.
That's it. And I do sort of think that, I think we've said it a few times this year, but this now, I think, is the race that Dovi just lost the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that has just punished him enough to put the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I don't think we're seeing roughly what he could do this year. I don't think he's got quite enough left in the tank to really push and go for it.
No, I'm not sure he has.
No. So as soon as the race finished, I looked at Sarah and said, championship done.
Yeah, I don't know if it's done, but I think it's done for Dovi.
That's what I mean. That's done for him. I don't think there's any way back for him now. He's not far off.
I mean, he's not far off. He's less than 20 points off at the moment. He's 18 points off, I think. 18
with
points
his
off.
form, I just can't see it happening.
But then with 2020, like we've just said about Maverick, maybe, over the next two races at Aragon, Dovi's going to win one and come second in the other, and Maverick's going to win one and come second in the other, and then all of a sudden they've both catapulted themselves right back into the title fight.
This is the trouble. You just don't know what's going to happen. If we could write a script for it, we'd be fine, but we can't.
Yeah, quite. Right, let's move on to Dino Petrucci, shall we?
Let's go.
Dino Petrucci qualified first, third, and raced to first. That was quite a hard sentence to say.
That is quite a tongue twister, that one.
Qualified first,
qualified third, finished first.
Yeah, now say it 3 times really quickly.
Qualified third, finished first. Qualified third, finished first. Qualified third, finished first.
Okay, that was better than I expected, to be fair. I'll give you that.
Even with a cold as well.
So that's essentially, I don't know, the perfect ride from Petrucci.
He just looked fantastic.
He really did.
But also, I found this really infuriating.
Yes.
Because it shows again what the hell he can do.
Yeah.
Where's he been for the last season almost?
I mean, it has probably been more than a season, hasn't it?
It has, in calendar terms, it has, because he dropped off,
just after that win at Mugello.
Break. Yeah, so after the summer break, he comes back, he's nowhere. What that would have been August, roughly, last year. We're now in October, so he's almost been 14 months of bad form.
Yeah, that's mad.
I know we don't have races all the time, but...
No, but even so, that's the point is he hasn't performed since Mugello.
Then he comes out at like the first wet race for God knows how long in the worst conditions at the coldest track and just goes nuts.
But like we've said, he's a big lad. And he's also very good at Le Mans. This is his third podium in a row at Le Mans.
Yeah.
But he's a big lad. He put the heat in the tyres and just went.
Yeah. And what I really liked as well is as soon as the race finished, he's on the podium. All anyone on social media is doing is just plastering pictures of the biggest smile you've ever seen.
Yeah.
He looks so happy. All we've got used to is seeing like not a dreary, but a downtrodden Petrucci for the last year.
Yeah, certainly.
And it's so good to see a happy Petrucci because that guy has got a cracking smile.
That's it. And it's a nice swan song for him. I know we've got 5 races left before he goes off to KTM, but it is a nice way to say goodbye to Ducati. It's not that he, it's not that he's just scraping for points and he spent his last year scraping for points. At least he's got this. He's managed to win a race. He's managed to kind of stick the finger up at everyone, including us, I guess, that said, what's happened? This is weird. Why can't he do it? He needs to sort his head out. He needs to get on with this. And he's stuck his finger up at us all and he can go to KTM with his head held high.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, not just us, had sort of questioned what was going on, just kind of put him down.
Yeah.
And this just goes to show what you can do.
Yeah, that's it.
And like you say, it's a nice sort of final hurrah parting gift to Ducati, because I assume they're parting on good terms. But it's a nice thing for him to have. Just finish on a high.
Yeah.
Although we have got 5 races to go, there's potential yet for it to get higher. But if this is the last high, it's a nice memory for him to take away before he starts again at KTM.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's one of those winners that you can't begrudge because everyone loves Petrucci and are just happy to see him win another race.
Yeah, you never hear any hate towards him, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And everyone loves a happy Petrucci.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that kind of brings us to the end of the race, doesn't it, there?
That sort of sums it up. He won.
Yeah, it's becoming quite a long show, so maybe we'll leave the fantasy. No, let's go through the fantasy league quickly.
Let's do it.
We were supposed to finish off answering the question we got about Petronas moving over to Suzuki.
Oh, yes.
Which we were asked, not last week, the week before, in fact, and I gave a very bumbling answer towards the end of the show. I'm not going to get into it now, but instead what I will do is I will link to Simon Patterson's article on the-race.com. I'll put that in the show notes. And that article was actually sent to us by the same guy who asked the questions, Edward, I think was his name. I can't remember now because it's not in front of me, so I apologise. But he was kind enough to send us that article after my bumbling idiocy in trying to answer his question last time. So I'll link to that. And if anyone does have a question for us, I know that we've not really shown we're capable of answering them, but I promise we do try sometimes.
We do. Life gets in the way sometimes. It gets a bit busy.
Yeah, exactly. But you can get hold of us. You can contact us, and Steve will reel off all the places you can contact us now.
We are For the Love of MotoGP on Twitter and Instagram. We do have a Facebook page, which is For the Love of MotoGP as well. Or if you want to drop us an email, we are fortheloveofmotogp@gmail.com.
Nailed it.
I did it again. That's 3 on the bounce. I'm well happy.
Right, let's run through the Fantasy League quickly. I had a torrid weekend. I've just looked at my squad, and in my team, I had Dovi, Morbidelli, Johan Mir, Fabio Quartararo, and Yamaha as my team of choice. So, not good.
Actually, we got very similar teams.
Yes, it wasn't a good weekend.
No.
Did you score more? But you scored less points than me actually in that round, Steve. So
that's because I have Vinales as well.
Yeah, not good.
That's the only difference in our team.
Yeah, so you are falling down the order now, and I'm just staying steady. So we'll start from the bottom, work our way to the top as per usual. We have Tuji there at 11th place. Alex Rinzo Antinoda in 10th. Mummy Racer is in 9th. 47 Riders in 8th place. I'm there in 7th. Caballero Cruzado is in 6th. Steve, with the official For the Love of MotoGP team, is in 5th. Big Al Racing is in 4th. And then things are tight in the top 3. In 3rd place with 807.5 points is Rapid Racing. Just 3 points above them is Sassy Chassis Lassie in 2nd place with 810.5 points. And then in 1st place is Mission Now Win, just a single point above Sassy Chassis Lassie with 811.5 points. So it's getting exciting at the top there.
I've just realised I scored the least points of anyone this weekend.
Yes, you did, my friend. Yes, you did. It's okay. I'm pretty low as well.
You are catching up, though.
Yeah, I'm catching up with you. It's kind of a matter of pride now for me to try and overtake you.
You got 5 races to do it.
Yeah, although you're still like 100 points ahead of me almost, so it's going to be quite hard for me to do it.
Unless I have a torrid weekend. But then we've got similar teams, so...
Yeah, trying to change all that now and not tell you about it.
It's gone all tactical. I like it.
That's it. Right, anyway, let's end it now. This has been a long show, I think. Yeah, it has been a long show.
This has been quite a long one, but there was a lot to talk about.
To talk about, and I realised I went off on a few rants during, so I apologise, but it's probably not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna stop happening. So just before we do go, guys, if you can do us a solid, if you could leave us a rating, a thumbs up, a like, tell your friends about us, whatever you want to do, but just give us those 5 stars wherever you're listening. That would be great. It just helps other people find the show. And other than that, thank you very much for listening. We will speak to you after Aragon 1. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.